Todd Sesker is the superintendent of the Faribault Public Schools. We've got a number of issues we want to tackle today, but before I visit with Todd, tomorrow the director of the nursing program at South Central College, Michelle Brillmeyer, I think I got the pronunciation right, will be our guest tomorrow. And then Carter Martin stops by from the Paradise Center for the Arts. You let us know what's happening at the Paradise. See, next week, Jerry, I know, hosts on Tuesday. The Merlin players stop in on Wednesday. They got a play coming up called Bleacher Bums. I actually have a role in that play. Go find out about it next Wednesday. I don't have to be on the stage though, so you don't have to look at me.
I'll go to that, Gordy, if you're going to be there.
Isn't that a perfect role for me? I got the face for radio. They know that. So I'm a public address announcer at Wrigley Field.
Oh, like
your dream
just
job.
Like Carrie? Is this kind of what we're
Well, no, he wasn't the public address announcer. He was a radio announcer.
Oh, that's
This is a public address announcer. You know, the guy that announces the lineup and players coming to bat and that sort of thing. That's the role I have. In Bleacher Bums, the Merlin players, professional theater. Now, I haven't found out whether I'm going to get paid for this. It's professional theater, you know.
It's probably
actors are supposed to get some sort of a stipend.
Yeah, or radio credits or something like that.
Just kidding. Mona Kaiser will be with us next Thursday. I am happy to announce that I will be emceeing their fundraising banquet coming up on the 10th of November. We're looking forward to that. Of course, they kicked off their campaign to raise funds to expand the senior center here in Faribault. Todd, all of us, that's our goal, is to become a senior. So this is not just for seniors. The senior center is for all of us.
It is, and Mona does a great job down there, and it's pretty exciting talk that they're having right now about the expansion of that building, so I'm excited to see how that progresses.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Today is Unity Day, which is an anti-bullying event, right?
It is, yep. And we have all of our schools are involved in some form or another to fight and combat the bullying issues that are out there. The Safe and Supportive Schools Act that was implemented a year or so ago has certainly given us a few more paperwork issues, but at the same time, it really has helped us. And as a result of some of the push of that legislation, we have teachers coming to us earlier, students coming to us to report things earlier, and so we can take care of a lot of these issues before they get too large.
Well, before that law was passed, though, I think most school districts were trying to address the issue of bullying. They had some sort of a policy to address it, don't you think?
They all did, yeah, they did, and we did it the best we could with those pieces. It's just nice to have legislative support and legal support now to implement some of these changes.
What are some of the things, for example, that you do to combat bullying? I mean, this sounds like after the fact, the reporting.
Right, that reporting is after the fact. We're very proactive in what we've done. It's also pushed us in a direction where we've now implemented some pretty good programs. The middle school is probably the best example because that's where obviously most of the bullying has taken place. And I did ask our principal how things were going down there, and she said over the last 2 years they've actually seen a decrease in bullying, which is terrific. But we have a SOAR program down there where we put kids in charge of their a lot of the different things that we do with our bullying. We actually have staff that talk about bullying, but the kids actually help implement it. This past year, we created I can't remember what the acronym stands for now. I should have asked the principals down there, but it's called a WEB, and it's really, I don't know if you've heard of our Link crew at the high school, but our WEB crew now we created at the middle school, and these are 8th graders who are now leaders in that building who have been trained to help talk to other kids who may have had some conflicts with others and actually be leaders in the building and have kids who feel like they've been picked on. They can actually go to them, and then in turn these kids will report that information to the principals or the administration. So it's been a really nice implementation that we've seen this year, and the spirit at the middle school is great. If you get a chance to go down there, Gordy and John, I'd encourage you guys to go down there and just check it out because the atmosphere is terrific, the kids are fun, and it's a good place to be.
Yeah, and the elementary schools probably have something in place, and the high school, of course, likewise.
Yeah, exactly. Elementaries, for example, they do announcements this entire week. They've been doing announcements to talk about anti-bullying themes for kids, and the teachers, of course, talk to the kids about that whole thing, and they're all wearing orange, so it's been a good week for us, and it always
You're not wearing orange, Todd.
I know I'm not. I forgot to do that. I might have to go find one of those T-shirts up at the high school.
Okay. affecting the school district. We're talking about Unity Day. Did you find out what WEB stands for?
I have not. I sent a quick text to Brent Hawkins to see if he would send that back to me, but it's the theme that we have for our leadership program at the middle school.
Right. There's something to do with bullying, obviously.
It is.
And it is Unity Day. Is that just in the school districts, or is this?
No, it's a national week, Unity Week.
So I should be wearing orange too.
We all should be wearing orange, yep. And
Oops.
Yeah, we'll have to go get our hunter outfits on and bring those back.
But yeah, the hunter orange.
Yeah.
Any idea why orange is chosen as the color?
No, I don't know the background behind that. I'm sure there's some rationale for it, but I am not sure.
No, that's fine. Maybe because it's in October.
Right.
I don't know.
Yep.
But in any event, none of us likes to see bullying, and the statistic that I read this morning on the news was 1 in 4 people, and that's reported bullying. There's probably a lot that does not go reported.
It is. It's something we constantly combat in our schools, and we really try to educate kids of how to, again, take care of themselves in those situations and how to handle that situation when they do feel like they are being bullied. We also make sure that the person that's doing the bullying understands that that is not going to be tolerated. We really, what we really ask for are the parent support when we go through these processes of determining whether or not a student is being a bully, and if they are, and we determine that, get support from the parents.
So is there any repercussions to the bullier?
Yeah, the person that's doing the bullying, we do have a policy in place, procedures for discipline of what happens to those kids. It can be anywhere from in-school suspension to out-of-school suspension for those kids by doing that. So we've hit it pretty hard, like I said, over the last 2 years, and we're seeing some positive results as we go through it. I'm not saying that we've eliminated it, because it's certainly out there still, but anytime you can get the community support, the parent support, all the different entities out there to support the anti-bullying campaign, it's going to produce positive results.
Ideally, in the lower grades, wouldn't you agree, just teaching respect, empathy of others, that sort of thing, to instill those, I guess, lack of a better term, values, that's what they are, in kids. When they get to middle school, they'll have those ingrained in them, and then we won't see any bullying. That's in the perfect world, of course, and we don't live in a perfect world.
It is, and those are some of the themes that we're actually incorporating at the elementary schools this week to teach those kids about those different pieces. And again, the teachers will talk to the kids about these different themes, and hopefully those kids will remember them, carry them out. And you're right, teaching them at an early age that's the proactive way of doing it, so we don't have to get into that reactive stage of when they become juniors or seniors in high school.
If somebody looks different, or they don't dress like you do, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, those are some of the things I'm sure you have to address. Whereas, well, I was talking to somebody not too long ago who says they believe that kids should all wear uniforms, and then you wouldn't have the dress issue, for example.
There's a lot of good data on that. Of course, that's a big political piece. It'd be pretty hard to incorporate, but there's a lot of truth in that as well. You know, the nice thing about our elementary schools, when I walk through the classrooms, we have a huge diverse group of kids of all different ethnic backgrounds and personality backgrounds, all those different economic backgrounds, and they all get along great. So I would say that we do a pretty good job inside the schools. If we can get some help outside of the schools to help us with some of these bullying issues, it doesn't stop beyond the school walls. And the more support we get from the community, the more support we get from parents, the better we can attack this problem.
Yeah. I can't remember who was on last from the school district. We visited with them. Was it Colleen?
Yeah, Colleen Murdistar.
We talked a bit about the free and reduced lunch program, and the percentage is pretty high here in the Faribault Public School District.
It is pretty high, and for outstate school districts, being at 70% for the elementary school, that is pretty high. And I think that's important to understand, because our diversity percentage is right around 27-28%. So if our diversity is 27-28% and our free and reduced is 70%, we're not talking about the diverse kids being on poverty. We're talking about all kids being on poverty. So poverty does not isolate one individual ethnic background. It goes over the entire culture. So we're not just talking about our Somali kids or our Latino kids or our Colombian kids, who are getting more Colombian kids now coming up as refugees and not refugees, but new to school folks. There's certainly some economic issues with some of those folks too, but we also have our white population that is having sometimes some difficulty with their economic pieces too. So we have to understand that it's the poverty and the economic piece goes over all cultures and not just certain ones.
Yeah, we touched on, of course, the lunch fund, which most districts, I guess, have been pretty much in a deficit. I think we touched on that last time you were on the program. We talked about that with Colleen, and, you know, obviously you guys are being more active in trying to collect those bills.
We are, and you know, some people would look at it as negative, and it certainly is a negative, no pun intended, because we're in the negative for some of those pieces, but
right.
The reason why we're in the negative is a lot of the people who theoretically can support the food program haven't paid all their bills, and we're trying to get those things in. And also those who are in free and reduced, if they haven't filled out an application yet for free and reduced, they are supposed to be paying that bill up until they fill that free and reduced form out. So if they haven't paid anything they couldn't afford to begin with, we end up with deficit spending. But the positive thing about that, I always try to look at things optimistically, is that we have kids eating. And one of the big pieces that we measure, we don't measure, but one of the big things that help kids succeed in school is if they have a full stomach, if they have food in their system, and that helps them academically. So even though we are negative, that just tells us that our kids are eating, and some of the reasons why are political, of course. I don't want to get into that, but all I know is that our kids need to eat in order to be successful in our schools.
Is breakfast offered at all of our schools?
All of our schools have a breakfast option, yeah, and we do have pretty good attendance in the breakfast option as well.
Well, that's good, because they say it's the most important meal of the day.
It is. You need to get your system running, and you want to be ready to go before school starts. A lot of our academic classes are in the morning, too, and that's where we've shown most of our learning takes place is in the morning, so that's great.
I know the Faribault Falcon football team saw their season come to an end last night over at Marshall. As you know, a lot of adversity on the team this year, and the accident that nearly claimed 4 lives. All of them survived. That's the great news. Unfortunately, they weren't able to play football again this season. That factored into the problems Faribault had on the football field. But boy, as Ned Lewis told us on our Faribault Coaches Show last week, that team came together much closer because of the adversity they went through.
Yeah, Ned does a terrific job with that team and those players. And, you know, when this all occurred, we brought the kids together and we had a good discussion with it. And it was a pretty tough time for our kids. Yeah. Not just the football team, for the entire student body, but particularly the football team, because they were pretty close to those students. And throughout the whole year, Ned does a great job of telling our students, our student athletes, that this football is a life lesson. It's not necessarily a game, and certainly that's part of it, but we want to make sure that this is a life lesson. And even though we never want to get into this situation, here's a perfect example where the kids pulled together and they all did a great job of seeing each other and making sure everybody's healthy all the way through this process. So I can't say enough about Ned Lewis and the coaching staff of how they were able to get these kids through this season. And having that win against Mankato East was kind of icing on the cake for that whole piece, so that was very cool to see that.
And then when we went to Rochester, John Marshall just did a neat offering. The team members collected money to give to the 4 families to help pay for some of their, you know, medical expenses and travel expenses with their youngsters in the hospital there in Rochester. That was just such a neat gesture by Rochester John Marshall.
It does. It really, you look at high school athletics and you look at situations like that and you say, yeah, that's pretty darn cool. They also put, I don't know if you knew this or not, but they put a poster right before all of our kids went down into the locker room. And I can't remember exactly what it said, something to the effect of get well. They put the numbers of our kids and the names of each of those kids that were in that car accident. And so all of our kids saw that when they walked down into the tunnel at Rochester John Marshall. So
yeah, I did not know that piece.
Yeah,
so
very nice.
That's pretty cool. You know, it's your adversary on the football field, but, you know, football is a family, and not just your local team, but all the teams in the conference should pull together. And what a terrific gesture that was, I thought, and they had gestures from other teams too around them.
They did, the whole Big Nine, and as you know, we meet on a regular basis with the Big Nine Conference, and just the amount of support coming in from all the Big Nine, all 12 Big Nine schools was tremendous. It was fun to hear that, and got a tremendous support from everybody that was involved.
Well, there are 12 schools, but there are 9 school districts.
That's correct.
So that's why it's still the Big Nine.
Yep.
That's the way it was explained to me anyway.
That is correct.
By the way, I went to last Friday's Moose event. They had tacos, all you could eat tacos for $5.
Yep.
The proceeds going to the families. They had to serve about 800 people there. It was packed.
Yeah, isn't
the
that cool?
entire time. So the community has stepped forward in all this too.
They have, and just a huge thank you to the community, huge thank you to all the people who helped with this whole thing. I know the families are very appreciative of what has happened with this community. It's been a really even though it was a very difficult couple of weeks ahead of time, these last few weeks have been very pleasant.
Meanwhile, the boys soccer team plays in St. Peter tonight, semifinals of the section. Just wanted to get that plug in. 7 o'clock tonight, St. Peter.
Yep, and it sounds like both teams are evenly matched, number 2 against number 3, and so it should be a good game.
It most certainly should. Well, I won't run down all the sports calendar, but
yep.
Obviously.
I think volleyball plays Thursday at Northfield, or is it home?
It's home against Northfield.
Home against Northfield.
Well, down on the radio.
Yep. Well, good.
So we're looking forward to being over in Nolan Gym to bring that to you tomorrow night. One of the things I did want to touch on, though, athletically, Bruce Smith Field, as you know, for a number of years has been battling a goose feces problem.
And seagulls. There are seagulls out there, too.
Which can be a health concern, obviously.
Mm-hmm. It has, and we've tried multiple options of trying to get rid of those things out there between spraying, and we even put some fake coyotes out there, and I think
worked for a while.
It did. I think the geese are laughing at them right now. But we've got to come up with some sort of solution for that area, because you're right, to have athletes play and participate on that field, it cannot be healthy.
No. So is there anything being discussed? I know I talked to Ken Hubert last week at the soccer game, and we kind of chatted back and forth about it, and the health and safety levy, could those dollars be used to maybe now this just thinking outside the box. I'm not a big artificial turf guy, but that might be the solution to the problem.
Right, the problem with health and safety is it only pays for the removal of that piece, and so how they would remove it, I'm sure that somebody's got to figure it out. I don't know what that would be.
But they wouldn't pay for the actual turf going.
Correct. They wouldn't pay for the replacement, so that would have to be up to the school, or we'd have to do some sort of bond or something like that to get that financing for that particular thing. Or private donations. I've seen many schools do that. I know a lot of schools in the area have turf now. It's not any secret that Casson has it, and I know that when Rochester Lourdes plays over in RCTC, they have it. I think Austin's building a dome over their football field now, and so there's a lot of different things that are going on. So, I mean, we'll talk about it. It's not anything that's on our agenda. We have a facility committee meeting coming up on Thursday. I don't know if that'll come up as a topic or not. I'll be certainly discussing it with Kevin Hildebrand, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, to see what other options we have for that. I don't know what you do. How do you get rid of the geese? That's the other option, but I don't know if that's possible or not. How do you do that? So.
Well, then we were chatting before going on the air, and you mentioned something about maybe doing what Austin did, putting a dome over the field.
They do have a dome, and the prices for domes are certainly expensive, but they're not as expensive as they have been in the past. It's certainly an option that we could look at. All those things would be on the table to try to figure out how to resolve this issue. But I've even had parents from other teams call me and complain about the goose poop on the bleachers, and we try to spray those things off, but I mean, when you get hundreds and hundreds of geese that are flying over the top, I don't know how you resolve that whole thing. We could drain the lake, but I don't think that's really a good option for us.
No, we don't want to do that. It's a beautiful setting down there at Bruce Smith Field.
It is gorgeous, and that's the other thing is you put a dome up, you kind of ruin that view too. So there's a lot of things that we have to talk about in order to try to resolve that. So we're going to put our heads together and see if we can come up with a solution.
What's interesting is you were saying you don't have a problem out at ball field and the soccer fields.
No, we haven't. I've been out there quite a few times, and I haven't seen that happen at all. I haven't seen any, just your normal bird or whatever it ends up being flying over there. I haven't seen any problems with geese or anything like that. I haven't had any complaints from parents about that.
No. Well, and it was bad in the Austin season finale. I know a lot of people were saying it was bad down on the field. It was,
yeah. And you can even if you drive over there in an afternoon, it might not be so bad right now because a lot of them are heading south.
Sure.
But the last few weeks, if you drove by there in an afternoon, you'd see a lot of those geese flying right off, and seagulls flying right off that field. So,
and all over the fairgrounds, actually.
Right. So we'll have to figure something out.
Well, what else did we want to touch on?
Well, we do have
technology.
We have some good programs coming up. Actually, they're already being implemented. Two of our programs that we're seeing some really good success are our technology implementation, our flight plan, which stands for Faribault Learning by Integrating Technology Everywhere. is really going like gangbusters. In fact, TIES, which is a state organization, it's an organization that supports technology and staff development, and very common for school districts in the state to go to these things, has invited our school district to present on our technology plan to other schools. So we're going to be planning on what we're going to be presenting up there shortly, so that's great. Our newcomer center is another thing that we've been really keeping an eye on and seeing what sort of progress we've been making with that. We have a newcomer center at the high school, one at the middle school, and one at the elementary school. We squeezed some classroom space for that. We're actually full now, so we'll be probably looking at expanding that next year. But that program has really done a great job with students who are new to country, who come into our school facility. They might be 14 or 15 years old. They have not only do they don't speak English at all, but they have not had any sort of academic piece. So an example would be sometimes we send out notices to parents about different things and events, and some people say, well, you need to interpret that English into Somali or to Spanish or to Cambodian or whatever it ends up being. But what we're seeing right now is that even if we do that, they can't read it because they haven't had any formal education for that. So these are newcomers coming to country, and so what we do with those kids is instead of putting them into a classroom where they are socially okay but maybe not academically, we're now putting them into a newcomer center to start them in a kindergarten curriculum, a first grade curriculum, a second grade curriculum at their pace until they're able to integrate into a classroom, depending on their age level, K through 12. Obviously, if they're kindergartens, then we get them soon enough, and we're able to do some pretty good things with the kids. But as you get older, it gets more and more difficult to integrate those things. So that's been a tremendous success. And it's also helped all the other students too. So it's not just for those kids, which is kind of a narrow scope. In a broader sense, our teachers, as a result of those kids not being in their classroom, they used to spend a lot of time with those kids because they couldn't understand English and they didn't understand the concept. So these teachers are now free to get to the other kids and help them and give them more one-to-one attention than they've ever had before. So teachers are getting relief, our students are getting relief, and we are just off on a very, very good step for these programs. And we've hired some really good staff to implement these programs too.
What are the percentage of students, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but what percentage would be in the English as second language program?
Yeah, well, our EL population, here, let me give you a really concrete example. Sure. At Jefferson Elementary, we have 88 kindergartners. 55 of those 88 kids qualified for our English language learner program. As you go up through the stages, it obviously gets less, but we're seeing a big influx of some of these kids in there. Our newcomer center, which is primarily refugees or kids who are new to country, we have about 20 kids in that program right now out of all 3 elementary schools, and our middle school is about the same, high school is about the same too.
And I made the comment the other day, can't remember who was on the air, it was to someone, that really this influx of individuals coming into our community is saving the school district, because you would see a decline in enrollment, a decline in revenue without that influx, right?
We would, and the misconception is that we're spending more money on these kids than other kids, but we're really not. The money we receive from the state to help these programs out offsets whatever expenditures that we have for these programs, so that's not an issue. If we didn't have these kids in our program, we would have to close at least one elementary school.
That's the bottom line.
It is.
Todd Sesker is the superintendent of the Faribault Public Schools, so we're sitting right, and I know there were some space issues when the school year started.
There still is. We're pretty tight for space. Our facility committee that we've activated again, we had it going before that last bond about 4 or 5 years ago, and
right.
We've revved it up again now with some good representatives on that, are exploring our space needs. Now that all day, everyday kindergarten is required, and preschool is probably not very far off, whether you agree with it or not, we're going to have to deal with some space issues. We now are pretty tight with our programs that we have within our schools that are required, that we need to probably add some classroom space. The other thing is with safety. If you go to both Lincoln and Jefferson, it would be nice to have a larger entryway that's safer for people who come in, so that they're not directly into the building right when they walk in. We could probably do some improvements up at Roosevelt too. So we're looking at all different things that really just make sense. Nothing real elaborate. I think that when we go through the facility committee process, we're going to have some very good recommendations hopefully this spring of what we're going to be tackling on next year.
When will you be in your new offices?
That will be hopefully. I chuckle a little bit at that because I'm not enjoying the progress that's happening out there. I think they're a little slow up at the middle school. That's where the district office is. They tell me that's going to be done on time, but we should be in there by June 30th of next year.
That's going to, in the long run, save some dollars for the district, right?
It is, yeah. It's the first building project where we've actually saved taxpayer money. We're saving over about 17, 18 years, about $2.1 million of taxpayer money as a result of building these. And the idea is that the tax was supporting these leases that we had out there for the town square and for the current district office, and rather than tax folks for this lease, we'll just pay it out of our operating capital. And there's a big shift. As a result of the operating levy, we're able to afford that payment out of our own bank. So, which is taxpayer money, but having it out of one taxpayer pocket rather than two taxpayer pockets makes all the sense in the world. So.
Refresh my memory, the computers, the laptops in the classroom, is that only at the high school level?
It's at 6 through 12, and so all of our kids 6 through 12 we chose the iPad. That's what the teachers voted on, and the kids. And then at the elementary school we have probably 10 in each classroom. We weren't ready to jump on with the elementary school because we haven't seen enough data to show that that's been effective. Not
at that level.
At that level, yep. So.
But it's going well in the.
It's going really well.
Middle school and the high school.
Yeah, we had a good demonstration. It's been about a month ago with two of our science teachers at the high school that demonstrated their use of the iPad. They're actually developing their own curriculum. I don't want to say senior teacher because he'll probably get mad at me for calling him a senior teacher, but one of our more polished teachers who've been around for a while.
Veteran teacher.
Yeah, veteran teacher. And then one of our teachers got together and they actually developed a whole semester of science curriculum for physical science on the iPads.
Fantastic.
Yep.
If they're smart, they're going to send us all over the country and maybe retire early.
Yeah, there you go.
Just kidding. Hey, thanks, Todd. Appreciate your stopping in.
Thank you, Gordy. Appreciate you having us.
Always a joy to have you on the program. Tomorrow, again, the nursing director at South Central College, Michelle Bromeyer, will be my guest. And on Friday, Carter Martin from the Paradise Center for the Arts. That concludes today's edition of AM Minnesota on KDHL AM in Faribault, Minnesota. Partly sunny skies in downtown.